Well, hey, folks, welcome to the pre-show. I need a happy break. I'm cranky today. That's all I can say. I need happy break. I don't know if it's a vacation. I mean, a real vacation, not just time away from, a day here, a couple days there. I need a vacation. We need to do like a trip somewhere, an adventure, something to break us out of the norm. That's what I need. So there's that. So how's your Friday? We're just waiting for the clock to tick away for 3 minutes after the top of the hour when we go live over on the radio network. That's over at subspace.radio. Hey, Susie Q. How you doing? And Anita Palmer is here. Snow here, she says. Possible afoot overnight into late Saturday. It's not us this time. How about that? So Chief Romeldian is here. Good to see you. Barbie D, the same. And I saw a couple other. I saw Kat is here. Good to see you, Kat. And Uncle Dave Potter. David Potter? The boy who lived. Harry Potter was actually based on the life of Dave Potter. But few people know that. Michelle Canham-Free, much love to you, too. Good to see you so early in the show. Maybe you're here a lot early in the show and I just miss you. I don't know. Good to see you. We got 1 minute left and we go live. So hang on to your butts. We're going to kick this off very quickly. So, growing my beard out, getting scratchy. We'll see how long I can stand it. I've tried it a couple of times, since I shaved it off. Yeah, it's very true. Harry Potter, David Potter, Uncle Dave. So let's see where we can get tonight. It's an interesting topic. It's a look at it from the backside around this topic we're going to do tonight. So we got 30 seconds and we go live. Not that we're not live now. We're just live in a different way now. Oh, it looks like my swords. I'm seeing the swords in the monitor. They've sagged. Here we go. I'm going to go dark, and then we'll come back live. Stand by.
The Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
Well, happy Friday night, everyone. Welcome. David Watts sent me a message. Or Derek Watts, I'm sorry. Just now it popped in and it said, Christians and ghost hunting, eh? Yeah, we're gonna talk about this from a little different side out than we normally do. And so I want to welcome you to the program. I'm Scotty Roberts. I'm your host. This is my show, the Intrepid radio program, heard here on subspace.radio. And that's where you hear us in the audio format only. And you can hear rebroadcasts of it the next day. And you can also join us for the video simulcast over on my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. Come on over there. Hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. And the little bell, and that'll give you announcements when the show comes on. And also, if you are not a member of my channel, you can click the little join button down below the screen. Somewhere. It's on this side or that side. It says join. You're going to see 3 ways you can become a subscriber in a different way, joining a money-giving subscriber to the channel, a member. And it's cheap. It's $1, $5 or $15 a month, and whatever you want to do. But always remember, show's always free. So that's just you showing me that you want to help us keep this thing going. And we do have a lot of listeners. If everybody gave $1, we'd be doing 3 hours a night, 5 nights a week. So here we are. So if you are listening over on the Facebook channels. Some of you are, I see the little Facebook by your name, or you're messaging me from Facebook. You aren't going to see the whole chat room. You need to come over to the YouTube channel. That's got the best chat room. That's where all the Intrep heads hang. And so you can come in there, join the conversation, and check it out over there. And of course, I've got every show we've done, just about every show we've ever done in the last 4.5 years is archived over on my YouTube channel. So you can go there, and under Intrepid Radio, you will find 850 plus episodes of this show and all the different topics that we talk about over there on my YouTube channel. So come on over, subscribe, join up, become a part of us. We're not a cult, and we won't eat you. Not many of us will. We try to keep them out of the chat room. So tonight I want to talk about, I've got it labeled as Christianity and ghost hunting. And it's not going to be solely about Christianity and how Christians view or should handle ghost hunting, but I wanted to look at some of the arguments that are put forward about ghost hunting within the church. I'm not talking necessarily the Catholic Church, because they have a whole system and set of rules that might be very different from, say, other Protestant types of churches and other denominations. But what I want to look at is how the Bible talks about ghost hunting. And it doesn't really address it directly, of course, because ghost hunting as we know it, at least in its pop cultural sense, in the last 20 years since its rise started, ghost hunting is more of a modern thing. That doesn't mean there weren't conjurers and spirit seekers and seers and people that you could in ancient times label as ghost hunters. But what I also found, don't be afeard to join us, says Uncle Dave. Don't be afeard. You get your butts in here and join us up. And your content is broadcast excellent, bar none. Why, thank you, Michelle Canham-Free. Hopefully my broadcast itself physically is excellent tonight. We've been having, we had to call in the other day. We had internet problems here. So I broadcast over the internet, and we were having some issues. So hopefully it's not going to be as choppy or fuzzy looking tonight. The sound is always good, but the picture is rough. And so hopefully we won't have that problem tonight. We'll see. Chief Romeldian says, I was Lutheran before I walked out, and we never talked about ghosts. Yeah, we didn't talk about ghosts so much in the Baptist church either, where I had all of my opportunity to study the Bible. But I did walk away from the Baptist church. That's good. The audio is perfect. The video is glitchy. Yeah, choppy. I don't know why it does that, to tell you the truth. I'm on wireless now. I had disconnected the wireless and gone hardwired the other night. Still didn't help us. Did the same thing. It's our, if I may make a statement to anybody in the Somerset, Amory, Wisconsin, New Richmond area that's listening to this, our internet here sucks. And our city councils have voted in certain mandates for internet companies. And so there's really only one here. There's one company that services all these areas. You go 12 miles that way and cross the river into Minnesota, and you got 200 different companies you can choose from, all with much broader broadband and much higher numbers than what we have here in our little town. So the internet here sucks. Their customer service sucks too. You know why? Maybe they're good on some things, but it's their customer service sucks too, because they know you can't go anywhere else. There's nowhere else to go to get internet unless you buy the big satellite dish thing and put it in your backyard. So anyway, enough about that. So I hope you're all listening over there at Northwest Telecom. Anyway, Kat says ours used to be so bad that if it was raining, you couldn't make a landline phone call. This is just a couple of years ago. CenturyLink is a joke. Yeah, we don't have CenturyLink here, but yeah, we're in a local podunk operation. So there it is. All right, we're waiting for Is it Starlink? We signed up for Starlink, Elon Musk's company. Hopefully one day they'll get out this way. We'll see. Yeah, there's a monopoly here with the local company. That's too bad. It's what it is. If they had to compete for your business over here, the internet would be a lot better. So would their customer service. Okay, enough on that. I have rabbit trailed on that for far too long. Hey, Sarah Yusuf, good to see you tonight. See you over in the chat room. And so this Christianity and ghost hunting, I think I could maybe more have addressed the topic I'm looking for by saying biblical adherence and ghost hunting. That might have been a little more accurate, but probably a little less catchy. So I'm looking at, and I have not studied what Islamic beliefs are on ghost hunting, although I know Islam acknowledges spirit beings, but so does the Bible. Bible's full of ghosts and spirit beings. So why is it we're told that we ought not do it? So when I was thinking about this topic, I was looking for some articles, and I found a site that is Ministry Matters is the site, and I wanted to see what this guy had to say about this, because he talked about Christians and ghost hunting. And I've got his article called up, and this is an article that was written 11 years ago. So we're talking 2012 is the information he has in here. I don't know that he's updated this since then, but these are the views at least from 11 years ago, and they haven't really changed much. I run into from time to time people within Christianity that says, oh, you really ought not to be ghost hunting. You know, you're dealing with all demons and demonology. And I said, well, I don't think so. I don't think it's all demonology. That's not to say I don't believe that there aren't evil entities out there and evil spirits out there. But I don't think it's all demons. And they said, well, you know, the devil can pretend to be anybody. You know, the Bible says Satan can appear as an angel of light to deceive us for that sole purpose. And it all sounds so, I got to tell you, and this belies certain points of my belief. And as you all know, I'm a little torn on certain things that I believe. Because there's one part of me that believes it still solidly without throwing out the baby with the bathwater. There's the other side that says it all sounds like so much world mythology that you don't know what to believe. Sorry for my coughing on air. For those of you who aren't used to listening to a radio host cough on air, I'm just not going to reach for my cough button every time, which I do have over on my soundboard. I'm just ignoring it tonight. And I still have the the tendrils of this cold. My doc told me a couple of weeks ago, you're probably going to cough for the next 6 weeks. Well, cheers to that. Here we go. So I got a cup of water. So the big question, and I think Sarah said something about it here. The concept of one bad apple ruining the barrel. It's more of dealing with and having intelligences. It's a broad topic. Yeah, it is. So ghosts in Christianity, ghosts in Islam, ghosts and Judaism. I'm going to deal with this tonight from this guy's article, basically from a Judeo-Christian point of view, because he's going into Old Testament. And I've got a line of things that I want to look at, too, from the Bible that give you, I found this, maybe I'll do this first. And this is spiritual warfare in the Old Testament. This is the Old Testament now, remember. Now, of course, we say in Christianity, it was Jesus who was supposed to be the fulfillment of the Old Testament. The Messiah was the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy. He was the fulfillment of Old Testament law. And so the New Testament, we say the Old Testament is kind of done away with, except it's not in Christianity. It's something that's considered as the foundations for what the Messiah was supposed to have accomplished. So you have a lot of Old Testament law, a lot of Old Testament belief that, of course, is repeated in the New Testament. And after all, what was Jesus in life? He was a Jew. So Jesus, Christianity, is merely a sect of Judaism, if you will, that believes that Jesus of Nazareth was the Messiah, while the rest of them don't believe that. So it's interesting. So I want to go through a few verses, and I've got my old seminary Bible here. This is the Bible I got when I was in seminary, almost 40 years ago now. But it's got a line of verses. I'm just going to flip through some of these verses. I didn't want to take the time to find them and flash them all up on the screen in beautiful text from the Bible sites. Now let's just look them up. And we'll look up a few. It'll be a good challenge here. Genesis 3, 1 and 4. And they've got it labeled here, Satan the serpent. I got to put on my cheaters for doing this. Hang on. Here we go. 3, 1 and 4. Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not even touch it, or you'll die. You will not surely die, the serpent said to the woman, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. All right. So that's the first one. It's talking about spiritual warfare. That's the overall topic. I'm not going to do a lot of commentary on these verses, but I want to read some of these. So this is spiritual warfare in the Old Testament, Genesis 3, with Satan, or as he's called in the text, Nakash, the serpent character in the Bible. Then you've got Genesis chapter 50. I just opened this up to Genesis 50. It looked like a zigzag paper marking that page. That's from a long time ago. Okay? So Genesis 50 and verse 20. This is kind of the end of the story of Joseph and Israel, the family moving into Egypt. So verse 20 says, but Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, and saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I'll provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to him. This is when he revealed himself to his brothers and so on. So, spiritual warfare. That would have been the relationship between evil and good. I don't see exactly what this guy was getting at. Now, you're going to notice when I start going through some of these verses, you're going to see some things that are relevant to certain exegetors of Scripture, as opposed to perhaps what we really need to take heed of. So Leviticus now. We're going to Leviticus 16, verses 6 through 10. See, Exodus, Leviticus is right after Exodus. So Leviticus 16, 6 through 10. Now, this is something very interesting. Levitical law. So if we're going to look at something for modern day Christianity or modern day belief based on the new covenant, the New Testament, the new covenant in Christ, we're looking back to Levitical law here. And Levitical law, remember, this is also the place where you find prohibitions against eating crayfish, prohibitions against a man walking within 10 feet of a menstruating woman, things like that. This is Levitical law for you. And Levitical law is a bunch of man's laws that have been put into Scripture about their religion. So it's Leviticus 16, 6 through 10 says this. Now, this is on spiritual warfare. Let's see what this says. Verse 6, Aaron, who is the brother of Moses, Aaron is to offer the bull for his own sin offering to make atonement for himself and his household. Then he is to take the 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the entrance to the tent of the meeting. the tabernacle in the wilderness, the pre-temple tabernacle made out of tents. Then he's to take those 2 goats and present them before the Lord at the entrance of the tent of the meeting. He is to cast lots for the 2 goats, one lot for the Lord and the other for the scapegoat. Aaron shall bring the goat whose lot falls to the Lord and sacrifice it for a sin offering. But the goat chosen by Lot as the scapegoat shall be presented alive before the Lord to be used for making atonement by sending it into the desert as a scapegoat. So we got the whole thing about the scapegoat. That's a whole nother lesson altogether, looking at practices in the Old Testament. So that is supposed to be a verse about God's atoning sacrifices. This is spiritual warfare. Hey, Elvis. Elvis is in the building. So then now you go to Leviticus 17, the next chapter in the Levitical law, and verse 7. And this is supposed to be demonic sacrifices. Verse 7. It's warm in here, by the way. Or I'm breaking into a fever. I don't know which it is. Verse 7 of Leviticus 17. They must no longer offer any of their sacrifices to the goat idols, to whom they prostitute themselves. This is to be a lasting ordinance for them and for the generations to come. Now, I'd like to see what the context of that is, but that's the actual verse. It starts in verse 6. The priest is to sprinkle the blood against the altar of the Lord, and at the entrance to the tent of the meeting, and to burn the fat as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. They must no longer offer any of their sacrifices to the goat idols. So, Israel apparently was worshiping goat idols. That's interesting, huh? And this keeps it says here earlier, this is what the Lord has commanded. Any Israelite who sacrifices an ox, a lamb, or a goat in the camp or outside of it, instead of bringing it to the entrance of the tent of the meeting to present it as an offering to the Lord in front of the tabernacle of the Lord, that man shall be considered guilty of bloodshed. He has shed blood and must be cut off from the rest of the people. This is so the Israelites will bring to the Lord the sacrifices they are now making in the open fields. And it goes on about not sacrificing to goats anymore. So there's a lot of stuff buried in this that we don't know much about by looking at the command on its surface. This is Levitical law. So this keeps going. I got all these verses. I got about 30 more of these, and it's taking a lot of time, so I'm not going to dig into it too much more. But here in Leviticus 19, verse 31, and then 20, verses 6 and 27, mediums and necromancers. Here we go. Let's see what this one says. 19, verse 31. About mediums and necromancers. Again, Levitical law. Let's see. Do not turn to mediums or seek out spiritists, for you will be defiled by them. I am the Lord your God. Rise in the presence of the aged, show respect for the elderly, and revere your God. I am the Lord. And when an alien lives with you in your land, do not mistreat him. See, aliens in the Bible. I think that means something different. So there is that was verse 31. And then we go over to chapter 20, next chapter over. It says in verse 6, I will set my face against the person who turns to mediums and spiritists to prostitute himself by following them, and I will cut him off from the people. That's what God says in the Old Testament. Consecrate yourselves and be holy, because I am the Lord your God. Keep my decrees, follow them. I am the Lord who makes you holy. Oh, listen to this, the very next verse. If anyone curses his father or his mother, he must be put to death. He has cursed his father and mother, and his blood will be on his own head. If a man commits adultery with another man's wife, with the wife of his neighbor, both the adulterer and the adulteress must be put to death. Death. If a man sleeps with his father's wife, must be his stepmom, I would think. He has dishonored his father. Both the man and the woman must be put to death, and their blood will be on their own heads. If a man sleeps with his daughter-in-law, this is getting pretty specific. If a man sleeps with his cousin's sister's daughter-in-law, no, if a man sleeps with his daughter-in-law, this isn't part of the ghost stuff. This is just all right here in this same line of verses. If he sleeps with his daughter-in-law, both of them must be put to death. What they have done is a perversion. Their blood will be on their own heads. If a man lies with a man, as one lies with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable. They must be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads. If a man marries both a woman and her mother, it's wicked in more ways than you can think. Both he and they must be burned in the fire, so that no wickedness will be among you. So if a man marries both a woman and her mother, would that be consecutively at the same time for taxes? The wife has died and he marries the mother. I don't know. It doesn't say that. It just says if he marries the woman. If a woman approaches an animal to have sexual relations with it, kill both the woman and the animal. They must be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads. If a man has sexual relations with an animal, he must be put to death, and you must kill the animal. Whew, this is harsh stuff. There's a whole lesson in here somewhere. That chapter just keeps going on and on and on and on. That's all the verses that come immediately after, don't go to mediums. So there you go. That's interesting stuff. Anyway, so I'm sorry, I got super runny nose and I got the dry throat coffee thing going on. So bear with me, folks. Bear with me. Anyway, this all goes on all through the Old Testament and all these verses. And I'm not going to go through any more of those. But that's that Deuteronomy verse out of Levitical law is the way that the Old Testament prescribed that Moses wrote Leviticus. Moses wrote the Pentateuch. It's attributed to him at any rate. I don't see why there's any reason to believe he didn't, although it's probably had its alterations over the years like everything else. So, but he wrote the first 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And then Joshua comes by and picks it up after that. I'm sweating. So you can't see that on radio, but you can see it on video. So now getting into the ghost hunting, the whole ghost hunting thing, and using some of that material that we looked at as the basis for what they're talking about here. This guy goes on, he says, if you aren't familiar with the phenomenon of ghost hunting, you haven't surfed through your basic cable channel lineup in a long time. The same channels that give you Jersey Shore, remember that show? Honey Boo Boo, which I never deigned to watch, even to have a head knowledge of what it was about. Complete waste of time even thinking about it. The same channels promote the paranormal every week. Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, The Haunted. Now you got all sorts of other shows. You've got all sorts of internet shows on YouTube and scary stuff. And something I had recently heard too is that Zach Baggins of Ghost Adventures. Why do you think Travel Channel has so many ghost shows? Well, I was told he had a stake in Travel Channel and he produced many of those. But now my understanding, and don't misquote me here, don't quote me on this because I don't know all the facts, just a hearsay amongst people that talk about this stuff, is that Zach Bagans is looking to try to have a lot of these ghost shows shut down on Travel Channel because they compete with his. Who knows? Who knows? But it makes sense from a business point of view, I guess. So I think most of us look at these shows. Some of us are true believers. Some of them take it with a grain of salt. But most ghost hunters, also known as paranormal investigators, they aren't limited to television. There's groups and societies that specialize in investigating paranormal claims that have popped up all over the world. I know in Minnesota alone, back the year that Ghost Hunters first aired on American television, which would have been, I think it was 2003, was the first year they aired, that there was like 4 ghost hunting groups in the state of Minnesota. And within a couple of years, there were over 500. So that shows how pop culture affected this. And this is why ghost hunting has become such a popular thing. There are some of these ghost hunting groups that are out there. They're all over the place. You can find them. You just go on the internet and just look in your own city. Is there any ghost hunting groups? I look at Kat. You live in a small town in Nebraska. Any ghost hunting groups in your town or people that do it? Mediums, things like that. It's all over the place. It's everywhere. Philip Blair said, apparently the ancient Israelites were excessively kinky. Apparently so. Usually you don't throw out their commands out there for things that people aren't doing. It's like, I don't know. I can't even think of anything, so I won't. What's BS? Paige, what did I miss? About Zach Bagans? I don't know enough about it. I don't have any problems with Zach Bagans. I like him. But so I don't know anything about that. That's just something I was told by some people that were supposedly in the know. Not told like, did you hear the gossip about Zach? No, it was just in talking about paranormal television. So is Zach Bagans a hobbit? No, but his cousin is. So ghost hunters, now, of course, as we all know, I'm talking to some of you like you don't know what this is, but they use technology. It's fringe science to attempt to prove or disprove alleged hauntings of houses, other locations. Some of that science has become awfully less fringe in recent years. Some of them use occult methods. They bring in psychics, mediums, channelers to assist with their investigations. I do that. Rainey, my own wife, is a psychic medium. She does not put that out there. I mean, she's quietly so. She doesn't make any money doing it. If that's you rate public psychics and mediums. No, she just has a gift. But real life ghost hunting is nowhere near as fast paced and exciting as the reality shows will show you, as you all know so well. Any of you that have gone ghost hunting, you can sit for hour upon hour upon hour, shuffle around from room to room, hallways, and all of that, and you get nothing. And sometimes you get something. Sometimes you get something right away. It all depends. But I also believe the veil is, I don't have this on any great authority. I've just heard it from several fronts that the weirdness and the spirituality of the world today, veil is getting thinner, they say. And it is, it seems like it's an awful lot easier to pick up activity. Because on a recent ghost hunt, we just picked up stuff right away. So, the banning of paranormal shows. Scotty, she says. Paige Rockwell Soiree. I don't think they're being banned. I think he's looking to have some of them canceled. That could just be a money thing, a competition thing. I don't know. I think the more the better. I think it's a lot of fun to watch. So I'm guessing that in the real world, there's no one to edit out all the boring stuff like you see on TV. You watch an hour-long show, which is on network television or even cable television. It's 42 minutes of airtime. In 42 minutes, they usually squeeze 3 and sometimes 4 days of investigations into those time slots, into the 42 minutes. Gives you an idea. So when you get a really boring show where they don't find anything, imagine what that was like for 4 nights. So there's no one editing in real life. And so I've heard accounts of people experiencing all kinds of demonic oppression and or possession after taking part in paranormal investigations. It stirs up trouble in the spiritual realm. When you stir up trouble in the spiritual realm, it's never something that should be taken lightly. So some people will poo-poo that altogether. You say, oh, please, the demonic. They might accept the fact that there's ghost hunting and maybe even ghosts, but, does anybody really get... Yeah, I think it happens. I've seen it happen. And I think it's how you prepare yourself when you go in. You can be a denier up front, but then why go ghost hunting if you're a denier up front? Uncle Dave said, I think there's some ridiculous shows that ought to be canceled. I agree with you there. So it's resonance, says Sarah Yusuf. Yeah, very much so. I see that. Johann Dancing Gypsy said, we didn't see or hear any spirits, but I did experience something very supernatural. It was so weird. Oh, that's interesting. You'll have to tell us about that, Johann. It was a trip. Yeah, I've experienced a lot, and I've told a lot of my stories on my show, on this show. You've heard a lot of the stuff I've seen and experienced. So some of my stuff, as real as it was to me, is highly subjective to the next guy. Oh, really? That happened to you? Yeah, it did. And I think I'm a pretty level-headed guy when it comes to that stuff. I even had a guy who was a... Philip Blair says, what did you see happen, Scotty Roberts? Possession? No, not that I would know as possession. There have been cases, though, where I've been called, and I don't even go to them. I will refer them to somebody who knows better than I do. There's stuff I just don't want to get involved with it. If somebody claims demon possession, and if there's anything to the cumulative stories of evil possession and things like that, it's not something I want to dick with. And it's something I'll say, look, I can come and investigate for you, but if I encounter anything or get that, then I'm going to shut it down. I'm going to say, you need to get somebody in here to help you, be it a priest, a pastor, a shaman, your religious leader, whoever it is, spiritual leader, or you need to get somebody in here to look at this place. So paranormal experiences seem to be subjective and personal. They are. Why, Sarah? Because they're all on a spiritual level. It's like spirituality is a personal thing. So what do you do when you encounter this stuff? There's the question. That's what this guy is asking. So that brings the question of whether Christians... Now, do you consider yourself a Christian? That's what this guy is writing from. That's his angle. He says, should Christians even be involved in paranormal research and investigations? Should people... Let me expand that and say, if you are expanding your spirituality, Judeo-Christian, Islamic, whatever you might be, should you be involved in these kinds of things? You can accept that they are either real or you might blow them off as fake. I think if you're a spiritual person, you can't dismiss paranormal investigation as being phony. You might be able to dismiss some shows or productions, but you can't, and some people, but you can't dismiss the phenomena as being something that's real. I believe in spiritual things, except for ghost stuff. That's the spiritual stuff I don't buy. I just don't buy that one. It's like some Christians in the Baptist church when I was involved. It's like ghosts. Oh, I don't know. I don't believe in ghosts. Well, you believe in the Holy Ghost, right? Well, that's different. That's God. So there it is. And we've gone through and talked about that kind of stuff before. So where I'm coming from there. But there's that question. Should we be involved in it? If you are somebody who is a believer in the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament? Should you be involved in this? And I speak to the part of my audience more pointedly with this topic tonight that are Bible believers of one form or another, or adhere to it in one form or another. I don't mean you're Christian because you go to church on Easter and Christmas. That's not what I mean by Christianity. People, that always threw me. Well, I'm a Christian because I go to church on Sunday. Well, most Sundays. I tithe. I give of my money to the church. I pray every day. I do this. I go to church. And I always thought that was funny because, I can stand in my garage all I want and call myself a car, but I'll never turn into a car. Christianity is something different than attending a service in a building. It's a spiritual issue. Most Americans, I think, that claim to be Christian don't have that. Their belief is, if I do this thing, if I go to confession, if I do that, if I was baptized when I was a baby, I'm good. I don't think that's the way it works. Opinion. Educated opinion. So, should Bible believers, is the point I'm making, be involved with paranormal investigation? Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that some of what we see on paranormal reality TV shows is probably a bunch of hooey. It's bullshit as bullshit gets. And a portion of the evidence they uncover is likely exaggerated. Some of it could even be manufactured. We've known cases where that's happened in television shows. Some shows are probably more trustworthy than others, but none of them can survive without ratings. Ratings. It's TV. And it's hard to get ratings if something exciting isn't happening on the screen every day. So there always has to be something happening to get people coming back. Now, I will tell you something. If I set out to do my own paranormal television show, I could almost guarantee you that every time I conducted an investigation, I'm going to get something. Might not be much. It might be massive. But it's like last year, all of you know, Rocky and I used to do that. Rocky Stucci and I used to go out to the Renaissance Festival grounds every Halloween. And it's 23 acres of this, what's a big movie set is what it looks like. Renaissance Village. More medieval looking than Renaissance, if you ask me. But one night we were out there and we were doing the investigation after the feast that they hold, the Feast of Fantasy. No, the Phantom's Feast for Halloween season. And we took people around. We didn't get much. And there's some things that actually disturbed me that I think some people were setting up, and that was very problematic for me. But we had with us a friend of mine, Chuck Hendrickson. He might be listening tonight. He said, there was a guy that died in one of the buildings a few years back, and they have to go through all the buildings a couple of weeks before the show opens in August, and they're going through and they found a dead body that had been there for some time. So it's obviously somebody who crawled in there during the winter. They said he froze to death and died. Well, so we went out in the dark. There's no lights out there at night. Uncle Dave can attest to what that place is like at night when nobody's there. And so we went out to this building. And Uncle Dave, if you're listening, just so you have reference, is if you go down past Bakery Stage, down toward the Legend Stage, which is the big ship, just past what was the chessboard, the live action chessboard, down in that corner. There's a building there, and I don't remember what shop is in there, but this is where this guy was found. So we went down and we had the Frank's box with us, the old-fashioned one that I have, and we had a spirit box. And we were standing outside about 20 feet away from the building. It's dark. You know what it's like when nobody's in any of these buildings? It's like a ghost town, only Renaissance style. No lights out there. We had a couple of flashlights. We had a little bit of light of the moon, so it was easy enough to find our way around it. 11 o'clock at night. And so we asked when we got in front of that building to the spirit box, we'll asked, is there a man here? Were you here? Did you pass away here? It's an artist shop and he's a painter, the guy who owns the shop. Okay. And we asked, did you pass away here in the cold? We heard that there was somebody here who died upstairs in this building. And we heard a woman's voice come over the box and it said, "It's haunted." Just like that. I said, "Oh, hey, that's cool. It's haunted." And then we said, "By whom? Who died here? Who passed away here?" And we got a man's voice follow up say, "I'm freezing." And said something else about being cold a few minutes later. And we thought, well, I think we've got the right guy. Or some entity was imitating him for whatever reason it might be. Now, the interesting thing about that is that that's not a big built-up story. There was no audience. It was just a handful of us walking out to a building that most people don't know anything about. They never knew that happened even. And we start getting responses like that. So let's move on. We're talking about the phenomena being real. Some of it's fake out there, and it's production value. I get that. But assuming that some paranormal events and paranormal phenomena are real, and I do believe that, I think a lot of us do, how should somebody who is a Christian respond to it? Should you have a different attitude than everybody else? It depends. I don't think it's a good idea to go ghost hunting in places like cemeteries or abandoned buildings for just the mere thrill of it, the adventure of it. I don't think ghost hunting, my opinion, should be just for thrill seeking. Although many times that's what you end up doing. You're so excited to be in contact with something. What do you want to know? That's a big question. When you go ghost hunting, when you go investigating, what is it you want to know when you're seeking something? Let's say you're Judeo-Christian, Muslim. You already have a belief that there's life out there after this one. Or do we really believe that? We just believe it because that's what we're told to believe. Because we're in this religion. Our religion says so. But do we really believe it? That's the question. And yes, Johan, you have to respect the dead. Sarah says, it seems odd that now the supernatural seems so far away from daily culture now than it seemed in biblical life. Yeah, it certainly does. It was part of their life back then. We've become more sophisticated now. We don't need that anymore, right? So, a Christian's purpose, according to the Bible, is connected to the purpose of Jesus Christ to destroy the works of the devil. That's in 1 John 3:8. And so when there's a situation where somebody's being tormented or harassed by a spiritual entity, whether human or demonic, I believe Christians have an authority to step in and confront it. There was a guy, Adam Bly, I've mentioned him before. Catholic, very Catholic. Worked with John Zaffis a lot. I'm not sure what he's doing now. I haven't talked to him in many years. But his purpose was to go on paranormal investigations to pray for the souls. He was a very holy person, if you ask me. And he was the one I've mentioned that was a demonologist, and he taught about exorcisms. He even was flown to the Vatican many times, my understanding, to speak to bishops about demonology and exorcism. But he was not a priest. And he said, no, I'm not a priest. He says, so I can't exorcise any demons. He says, but I do know what's involved, and I can pray and I can do this. So his whole take was very different when he went on these investigations. But I believe Christians, I believe anybody spiritual, let's take it out of Christianity in your spirituality. If you have the ability to confront that evil, you can certainly confront it. And that's supposed to be a call for Christians to do the same in the New Testament. And so Christians have that authority. If a family's dealing with a paranormal activity in their house and they need help getting rid of it, then that's fair game. But there's always some degree of risk when you confront evil, especially if you don't know exactly what you're doing. And if you do get involved in any kind of ministry that deals directly with evil, be prepared to pray and learn as much as you can about spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare. This is crazy shit when you think about it. You're opening up that door. This is what I think a guy like Zach Baggins is. Is Zach Baggins a spiritual warrior? I don't know. I don't know what his real purposes are for what he does. But he does it. Guys like Zach Baggins, let's put it that way. I'd love to sit and talk to him. I'd love to pick his mind on it and see what he thinks. What he's thinking. He's probably stated it a lot over the years in his show, but he's got a reason for doing what he's doing. That's deep down, probably. Is it just to know things? Is it just to know stuff? Is it to drive things away, to drive the evil away? Has he been affected by that? I think we've seen that he has. He talks about his eyesight even as having been something that affected him from a particular investigation. And by the way, if you're hearing voices in the background here, it's not spirits. It is my small child still up at 10 o'clock at night, screaming and going up and down the stairs. It's been going on all night. There's no satisfaction. There is no happiness. There is only I must yell at everybody and everything about everything. So anyway, let's move on. So some methods of the methods that paranormal investigators use are dangerous, outright dangerous. Should Christians or anybody be collaborating with, and this is where I might disagree with this author. He says, should they collaborate with psychics or other occult practitioners? Attempting to communicate with the dead in any way, specifically to get information or to satisfy curiosity? Should that be avoided? Should that be something that we do? I do it all the time. Should that be something we are involved with? There's a big question. Johan says, LOL, Scotty. I'm not sure what you're laughing at. My screaming child. I don't know if you heard the last one. It was like Banshee-esque. It was a big, long, shrill scream. And the mom's yelling at her, and it's just on it goes. I need some duct tape and a pole. Duct tape a child to the pole. I wouldn't really do that, Child Protective Services. Not really. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So, one of the verses tonight we read is pretty plain. Do not resort to dead spirits or inquire of spirits with divination. You'll be made unclean by them. I am the Lord your God. So says Leviticus 19:31. That was the first verse we read tonight from the Old Testament. Deuteronomy 18, the chapter before that, puts it this way. There must not be anyone among you who passes his son or daughter through fire, who practices divination, is a sign reader, a fortune teller, a sorcerer, or spellcaster, who converses with ghosts or spirits or communicates with the dead. All who do these things are detestable to the Lord! Exclamation point. In Deuteronomy 18. That's what it says. Old Testament Levitical law. What do you think of that? If you have a system of belief that you adhere to, that is Christian in nature, Jewish in nature, something else like that, is this something you need to adhere to? Hold on. Oh, all right. Rainey is texting. That's the dinging you heard. Texting to, I saw that she said something. I thought, I better look at that in case there's a problem. And she said to my daughters, my older daughters, Abby and Bryn, she said, OMFG, Oh my fucking God. These little girls. So there you go. That's what she said. They're fighting hardcore and screaming. This is where dad needs to step in. And you know what? We're done with the radio in just a couple of minutes here, and about 3 minutes, and I'm going to step out of here. I'll be back for the captain's cabin. I'll turn down the mic and we'll be back. But I'm going to have to go check what's going on because it's hot and heavy out there. Little kids. What the heck? Okay, I'm still hearing it. So, where was I? All this stuff, and I've only got a few minutes left. We'll cover some more of this in the captain's cabin tonight. So if you're listening on the radio, you can certainly come over to the YouTube channel and join us in a few minutes. And we'll talk about more of this. But what about that verse? Let me repeat that Old Testament verse. If you're Jewish or you're Christian, it says to you who is Jewish or you who is Christian, there must not be anyone among you who passes his son or daughter through fire, who practices divination, is a sign reader, a fortune teller, a sorcerer, or a spellcaster, who converses with ghosts or spirits or communicates with the dead. All who do these things are detestable to the Lord. How about that? Consulting the dead could be an open door to powerful demonic activity if you're not careful. That's probably a good reason for some of that. Ghost hunters often use technological tools that help them with their investigations. But some of these methods seem to be little more than high-tech seances and Ouija boards on a high-tech level. EVP, recorders, ghosts or spirit boxes, electronic speech synthesis devices manipulated by spirits, EMF, electromagnetic field meters, probably aren't an issue, provided they aren't used to gain information. But is the gaining of information from a spirit something we're not supposed to do? Isn't that interesting? Thanks, Ryan Gale. There's some good fatherly advice. Kids going to be kids. Ain't that the truth? Parents going to be parents in a minute here. All right, guys, we got a half a minute, and we're out with the radio audience. So all of you who are sitting in here, let's say goodnight to the radio audience, and we're going to go into the captain's cabin. So for now, radio audience, I just want to say, live long and prosper.
Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid Radio Program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
All right, guys, we're going to do the captain's cabin here in a few minutes. I'm going to step away for a few minutes, though. I need to do some dad things at 10 o'clock at night, which already has me irritated. So you all hang on. I'm going to turn my mic off for fear of things that might be broadcast. So I'm going to leave the camera on, though. You'll see it right here. So we're still live, but I'll be right back. You guys hang in there. Well, I see we didn't lose too many of you, at least in the chat room. So, welcome to the Captain's Cabin. We didn't run the, well, why don't we? Let's just do it for fun. All right, here we go. Captain's Cabin. Well, hey guys, we're back. Welcome to the Captain's Cabin, such as it is. I heard a yelp come out of the other room. We'll see if it gets any worse than that. So, Paige said, I'm even scared to talk now. Hey, we got Sarah Yusuf. I'm just going to bring her in right away. Hey, Sarah, how you doing?
Hey, Scotty.
So, let me give you all a quick debrief. What was going on out there? Kids fighting. Why they fight? Maybe they're normal. Maybe that's a normal kid thing. Yeah, my brother and I fought all the time. So, yeah, it's a normal kid thing. But it's stupid fights. It's fights over, I don't know, whatever. And so they're all kind of down here in the family room, in the other side of the downstairs here, watching movies in all the makeshift beds that Rennie has done up for them over there. And by the way, I have an edict out for the youngest tonight. I do not want to hear one more word emit from your face for the rest of the night, unless you were asked to say something. Because just crying. There was like weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. And it's the scream. It's that voice that sounds like this. And I'm like, stop. Just stop. I said, really, when you think about it, I said, it ain't that big a deal. I said, just stop. Quiet. Be quiet for your mom. I said, I'm on radio in the other room. Granted, I'm not an international radio. Well, I am. I'm an international radio show. But I don't have hundreds of thousands of listeners. It's not like network radio. But I said, you guys gotta watch that. I said, it's getting out of hand. So much so that if I hear it several times during my show and it picks up over the microphone, then it's a problem. It's 1 hour a night, guys. 1 hour. And it's after they're supposed to be in bed. So this is going on, this fighting. Rainey's about fed up with it because she's not able to control it very well. Nothing she seems to be able to do stops them short of torture and beatings. So she looked at me, she said, I'm about ready to beat the 8-year-old. Better take care of this. So it's a little tongue in cheek. But you want to hear what the main conflict was in the last 20 minutes? But Dad, she rubbed her butt and vagina on my pillows. I said, oh, really? And I looked at the other one. She goes, she did it to mine first. So the 8-year-old was mad at the 11-year-old and rubbed her bare ass and genitals on the 11-year-old's pillows while the 11-year-old got up to get a drink of water. So the 11-year-old came down and, in proper retaliatory form, did the same thing back. I'm like, I stood there dumbfounded. My wife is standing over on the other side of the downstairs in her studio. And there's a little bit of that trying to not laugh about it, while at the same time so fed up with the screaming. The little one's the worst of all. They've all got their moments, and I said, all right. I said, do I have to say this? I said, I guess I have to say this. There will be no butt and vagina wiping on anybody's anything pillows. She did it all over the stuffed animals too. I'm like, you guys, where do they learn this? I don't rub my butt and genitals all over my wife's pillow when I argue with her. She doesn't rub her butt and genitals all over my pillows when she's mad at me, that I know of. Of course, we're adults, and there's obvious answers to those. But it's like, are you serious, guys? That's what you did? And now it's thinking of, Rainey and I are going to have to talk, and I said there will be repercussions, consequences for your actions. So we'll have to think about how to handle this now. The beatings will continue until morale improves, says Kat. That's it. Now, like, I even asked them out there. It's pointless to ask an 8-year-old this. I said, probably heard that too. A child yelling at mom because she has to go to the bathroom. Rainey said, what are you doing out of bed? What's going on? What do? You don't haul off and smack them every time they mouth off. But there has to be retaliation on a maybe this is Sunday morning talk. But so that's what went on during the lengthy break, the 5 minutes or so that I was out. This is so different than I thought. I was walking into a ghost talk, but it's life with kids. Well, Chuck, you missed the show. The show was an hour ago. This is the after show. So just in between. So Sarah, there you go. You got a solution?
Sorry, I missed that. What did you say?
You got a solution?
Well, I mean, it's clearly obvious that there's not really a miscommunication. There's a disrespect, right? They don't respect each other.
Yep.
So you'll have to do something to engender and foster that in both. So
it's exactly what I have to do.
You can't make them like each other.
No, you can't.
No,
and they don't dislike each other. They just get tired. They'll play fine together, but they'll play fine together to a certain point until they get mad at each other about something stupid. So, that's the way it goes.
And then whenever they get mad, they have to have a proper outlet for it.
Right? That's right. So cattle prod can be effective, says Paige Rockwell. Soiree. So, hey, Justin King Green, I see you're there hanging in the wings, but brother, I don't know you. And I'm seeing your face. I don't know if you're automated. I don't know what it is. We get so many crank calls on here. I let somebody in and all of a sudden somebody's penis is hanging out. So why don't you go into the chat room, introduce yourself to everybody. Moderators will take a look at you. And if you want to join the conversation, I'll bring you in. How's that? All right. So have them write it out 100 times. Yeah, there's that too. I used to make Sam, when Sam would do stuff, I used to make him write pages of the dictionary. I'd take one page of the dictionary. I'd say, I start from the first word at the top of this page to the last word. I want you to write everything out as you see it.
And how's his vocabulary now?
That's better. So, Philip Blair says, we're just lucky ghosts don't have butts and genitals. Well, I think they do, Philip. I think ghosts do have butts and genitals. It's just a little different than you might think. So, Justin, go on over into the chat room. Introduce yourself. So, I hope my ghosts don't. They're geriatrics. Shudders. Yeah, I've heard stories of well, I don't know. I've heard stories, let's put it that way, of ghosts and genitalia and things like that. So, do ghosts crave the same things after death that they craved in life? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
in the Chinese culture, there's a concept of hungry ghosts. That
yes.
they crave certain things that or whatever, however they were in life, they tend to maintain that even in death. Whether
Yes.
some people have histories of like alcoholism, or they have a favorite food, or
Right.
all sorts of stories.
Right.
So even if the girls end up being ghosts, they'll still be doing the same thing. So
Yeah. Hopefully they'll grow out of this eventually. So not have the severe fight going on all the time. And the fights, you don't want to, it's constant. It's constant. I could be sitting down here working, and Rainey will go pick up the kids from school, or she'll go to the store and the kids come with her. As soon as they come in, I hear the door open upstairs and I hear kids yelling at each other. Every single time. It's like, argue with each other. I don't get it. I don't get what the arguing is all about. I don't get what the fighting, the constant bickering is all about. Makes no sense to me.
Hey, Sarah. Hey, Scotty.
Hey, Uncle
Hey,
Dave.
Uncle Dave.
How are you guys?
We're just fine.
Yeah, I was real excited for today's topic.
So we're talking about Christianity and ghost busting.
Mhm.
And my grandfather was an Iowan country preacher. He had some big towns. He was a preacher at a very large church in Waterloo for a long time. But after he retired, he went back to doing just small little country churches and stuff, and picked up a church that, at the time, it was like, hey, our preacher just left. Could you come and do a few Sundays till we find somebody? And that turned into another 20 years of preaching. Like,
Sure.
Because they're like, well, we really don't want anyone else. We like you. And he's like, well, I kind of just retired after however many years of preaching. But anyway, he was quite a believer in the paranormal, the afterlife, if you will, clairvoyance, clairaudience, seeing auras, all that. And he had a group that would meet at his house, I think weekly, and they would discuss such things, and they would work on seeing each other's auras and doing that kind of stuff. And he was a very firm believer in life after death and reincarnation and all of that, and did not see it as crossing with his Christian beliefs. But as I've said before too, his library included works by Gandhi and all kinds of other things. It's, when I was coming to an age to be baptized, he had me meet with a rabbi and meet with a Catholic priest and meet with all these different religions so that I could understand the choices I was making and understand what my options were and such, which it's a very open-minded church in that way. But I've always believed in what I believe in. And I had an uncle, my dad's brother, who passed away when I was 10. Talked about this briefly before, but that opened my mind to what the other side was like. There were a whole bunch of things that happened following his death that made me go, oh, death is not dying. Death is just crossing over. And my mom does automatic writing, or did automatic writing back then, and had many connections, not only with my uncle, but with other people, and could answer questions that she would have no knowledge of. I remember there was a point where somebody that worked with my dad had been talking about it, somebody else overheard him and said, I don't believe that. He said, my brother just died. Why don't you find out what, ask a set of questions that only his brother and him would know the answer to. And so my mom reached out to his brother, came back with all these answers, and Dick was floored. He knew all all the answers came back correct for
Yeah.
something that only the two of them knew from when they were kids. No way my mom would have had any knowledge of it. So
Yeah. Well,
I get the Leviticus stuff, but at the same time, I'm like, well, let's face it, there's some pretty harsh rules in there about everything.
there is.
It's like
Levitical law was
what's worse than Caesar's law?
yeah.
It's like, holy crap! Why are you upset at the Romans? Because they're too lenient?
Yeah. So, yeah, and Levitical law seems to be something that it had its purpose. Moses established it. I don't know if he had any counselors that were working with him, or he just made this stuff all up on the go as he wrote it. But I think Moses, and no offense to you at all, Sarah, I think Moses, like Muhammad, they all crafted a religion out of whole cloth and made it work for what their purpose was. Muhammad was trying to unify the Arabic clans. And he had a Jewish and a Christian mentor. And these guys were telling him, hey, if you want to unify the people, you got to go monotheistic. And so he took all the gods at Mecca. And this is a quick, overview. It's in brief. And he boiled them all down, and he raised one of them up to be the chief god, renamed him Allah. This was their god. Very much the way Moses did with the Jews. Judaism did not exist prior to the Exodus event. And when they're out in the desert, what did Moses do? He writes down the law. He writes it all down. They build the tabernacle of the covenant, the tent version of the pre-version of the temple. It's all laid out after Egyptian temples and holy places, holy of holies. There were all different kinds of religions that were attached to it because he learned so much of that in his younger days. Who the hell knows what he learned when he was in Midian for 40 years between the time, according to the biblical story, he killed the Egyptian and ran off to Midian. Married a woman.
The other day I was listening to something. They were talking about Moses. I don't think it was you. I think it was another program. And the speaker was talking about a connection to the Minoan gods and such. Could that be where the calf came from? Were they still following that
I
same
thought
Minoan?
The golden calf all had to do with Hathor, the calf goddess of Egypt.
Okay.
And I think it took place at the mountain that was her mountain, Serabet el-Khadim, dedicated to Hathor. And Moses, I think, was up there communing with the priests community that was up there. And it's a totally different topic, but I think that's what took place there. And so all that was going on. Moses created all of this stuff. He writes this law, and this law is just incredibly detailed. Oh, by the way, according to Jewish tradition and Jewish writings, Moses didn't flee to Midian when he murdered the Egyptian. He first fled south to Ethiopia and married, it was either a queen of a king who had died, or it was the princess. And then from there went off to Midian years later and married a second wife, Zipporah.
If Moses is who you think he is, that would make perfect sense, because he would be of the royal house of Egypt, and they'd be like, oh, that's a good marriage. Let's take that. And there's no mass
hereditary high priest
back then, so they.
Dave froze, or did I freeze? Sarah, are you there?
I'm here.
Sarah,
you're froze. Your picture's froze.
Are you there? I froze. The whole show froze. Oh, there we go.
No, we were all talking. I could hear all three of you. Well,
weird.
I could hear all three of us, but your picture was frozen. Well, It's hard to say if Sarah's was frozen. She's a pink dot with an S in it.
Sarah, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, that was weird.
But
Yes, I think he did, Philip Blair. Moses already knew the people in Ethiopia. I think there was
and
some.
they would have had no knowledge that he had fled or that there had been a murder or any of that stuff because there's no mass media, there's no mass communication. There'd have been no way for them to know. He shows up. He's a prince of Egypt.
Yep.
We'll take that marriage. That's great.
Well, there is one of the traditions that goes along with that in Jewish writings is that Moses was a general, by whatever his Egyptian name was, and he subdued a rebellion in Ethiopia, killed the king, and then decided, I think I kind of like this, because the queen, he took the queen and kind of liked it there. And Pharaoh sent word, you get your butt back to Egypt. You get your little Jewish butt back to Egypt, pre-Jewish butt back to Egypt. And that's mine, remember. You were there subduing a rebellion. And so the theory is that he went back there afterwards. But there is also the issue of Senenmut, this guy who fits the date, that he's elevated to high position, grand royal architect, the high priest of Amun, the grand vizier, the hereditary crown prince of Egypt is a title that's given to him. But all we know about him is that he was born to commoners. Is this the same guy that the Jewish law speaks of? I don't know. Or not the law, the mikvah, the Mishnah. And so all of that to say that all was a rabbit trail off of talking about Moses wrote this stuff. Why did he write this stuff? Why did he write such meticulous law? Was it because he's dealing with a slave people that had been slaves for at least a couple of 100 years? And we've got to have a little order here. I don't know. I don't know exactly what his purpose was for writing what he did. Did God actually tell him to write those things? Is the big question. Is that God's word? This is what God, there's a lot of places in the text where it says, God says, I am the Lord. So therefore, you're going to do it this way.
Very funny, Phil Blair.
What's that?
Phil Blair, fart in the wind. Death. Death.
Death. Death. Yeah, exactly.
And I can't help but think of a Python-esque thing. Crucify him. What are you, a bunch of ninnies?
Yes. Yeah. Crucifixion. What was the guy in Life of Brian? He said, Jehovah. He goes, that's blasphemy. You can't say the name of Jehovah. Stone him. He goes, Jehovah, Jehovah, Jehovah. Jehovah, Jehovah, Jehovah. And so, yeah. It's crazy laws.
Yeah.
And
we're very, very close Jewish friend. Well, he's passed away now, but we
I know you
were roommates for a while. And we used to discuss all the time, talk about like the food laws and this, and those made sense to me as a chef. I'm like, well, you're living in the Middle East and you're far from the ocean. So shellfish isn't going to last you very long.
That's right.
Yeah. So it would be dangerous to eat pork if not salted and taken care of properly right away. It's not going to last very long. No. And it's beef, on the other hand, and goat and some of these things, you can age those and in essence create jerky in ways that you can prolong that usage for a long time. And you're both frozen again.
No,
I feel like I'm here.
Okay, I can hear you.
I don't feel frozen.
So all along, when you've been freezing up, your audio's been working fine. It's just the picture that's freezing.
There you go. Like you said, Sarah's just a big pink ass. So
it's really, really hard to tell. It's like it looks exactly.
Well, I mean, to tie it all back, to Genesis and kids. You know, it's that whole entire concept. You were talking earlier about Eve and the snake, and I think I even said it in the chat room. It's like when parents tell their kids, "Don't jump on the furniture; you're going to get hurt," and they do it anyway and don't get hurt. It's that realization that that authority is not absolute.
Yeah, sometimes you want them to get hurt because it's like
Ryan Gale said, You can't mix linen and wool either. That was a Levitical command. Don't mix linen and wool.
And yet, in the 1700s, it was a very popular fabric, linsey woolsey.
There you go.
Linen and wool mixed together.
So, are you in violation of God's law?
Maybe the reason that came to be, I'm trying to think. So, is there a point in the 1700s where there's a huge anti-Semitic movement happening?
Possibly. Or it could be
there was always an
where
anti-Semitic movement
where the
somewhere.
fabric was created to root out Jews from the military or what have you,
Sure.
by saying all of our shirts are linsey woolsey, so that those who were freaked out by that would stand up and go, "Oh, I have to go."
Those
So
were
I don't know.
the days of conscription, right?
Hey, hang on a second. Justin King Green, are you a real guy out there? If you are, give me a thumbs up.
I don't see anybody
All
in
right.
the chat room.
You know what? I'm going to bring him in. You've been sitting there for a long time. Justin, you've been sitting there for a long time. Either you're waiting a long time to pull some kind of shit on me on this show, or you're just waiting patiently to get on. So how you doing?
Let's not pull anything on each other, brothers, because
All
we
right.
don't have anything to pull on each other, because we're brothers. We're brothers in kind.
There you go.
You know what? And that's what I think of as a military man. I'm a military man, just to let you know. And I gave my life for my country, and my country gives my life for me. And that's just all I gotta fucking think about that. And everything else is just exceptional.
All right.
Else, it's just a journey, you know.
Absolutely.
And I love all of you, and I love all of you equally. And I will never defeat you. I will never do anything to you. I'll never do anything to you that anything wouldn't anybody
Where are you coming
else
to us
would.
from?
Where are you coming from?
I come from Boston. I come from New England. So
All right.
I come from that area. Yeah. But
All right. Well, it's good to have you here.
It's good. It's good. It's good. I talk to a lot of people in my neighborhood, and I try to let them know. And I'm like, you know what? It's like God is speaks in my head. You know, he talks to me in my fucking head, dude.
That's what God supposedly does.
Exactly. He says, yes, my son, no, my son. And that's just the reality we live in. And no matter how weird that reality is, that's the reality we should live in.
Well, there it is.
We're not going to lie to ourselves. We're not going to fucking bullshit.
Absolutely.
No.
Well, hey, listen, Justin, thanks for being so patient and sitting there. I thought I was watching you through the whole conversation here, sitting there out in the wings in the little window going, well, that's not a recording. He's been sitting there for a long time.
Look at that pathetic fucking scumbag. Look at that loser.
Yeah. Look at that loser over there.
Yeah. No, I know what you were thinking. I knew before you even thought it. Because it's just come on, man. We all got to think it.
Well, when we see people come in that we don't know, that's the first thing I think. It's like, hey, go introduce yourself in the chat room. So,
well, because I already talked to a lot of people. I talked to a lot of fucking people, and it's just the way it is.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There isn't anything you can do about it. It's just the stark reality of what it is.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, Justin, do you ever had any experience with ghosts or ghost hunting?
Yes, I have actually.
Tell us a little bit about it.
And if I were to tell you about it, I would just say it would be about not ghosts or ghost hunting or anything like that, but it's called the obulus.
Oh yeah.
If you connect with the obulus, then you can connect with the obulus.
Murder.
Yeah, exactly. But if you go there and you're some other place, so
yeah.
Man, it's twisted. Because, you got some, I got my third eye wide open. And, I see these things, on the daily. And I see the devil I see God. I see everything, but I see the devil more. But you know what? It's the devil I knew. Devil I know, not the devil I don't know. You know what I mean?
I think I do.
Devil I know is easy. Devil I don't know. That's
Oh,
a
I see
whole
what you're
different
saying.
subject. Yep.
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, man, it's good to
That's
have you.
what
I
I'm
want you
trying
to
to
come
say.
back
That's
again.
what I'm
Come
trying
back
to
to the
say.
show.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Come back to the show again sometime. It's good
Yeah,
to have
nice
you on.
meeting you.
Nice
What's
meeting you,
going
brother.
on?
Yeah, nice meeting you.
All right, Santa Claus and you and
That's
Doug
Uncle Dave
Campbell
to you.
and fucking
no,
Bruce Campbell and you and everybody else. And it's
He's
all
not
good.
Santa until December.
No.
Yeah. I understand.
All right, brother. You have a good night. Thank you for calling in and
You have a
being
good
patient.
night, too.
Have a
Thanks for
good
your
night.
service.
All right.
All right.
There we go. So that was all right.
Oh, I
See,
think he's got a wee bit of a
it's
cold.
not
I think
always
he's been
that way.
rumming himself.
Yeah. So, yeah, many times you'll see a loop. You'll catch a loop in the video. That's a fake video. So, but
Yeah.
he was there the whole time. So I thought, we'll give him a chance. I think you might be right, Chuck.
So I know you have an NDA,
Yeah.
but did you have a good time? I think you can
like
talk
the
about
shirt
that.
I'm wearing?
Yeah, I love it.
Good.
You had a good time.
And
I
look,
watched the show
I
live.
have
I
a
thought
glass
it was a
of
great
water.
show. I thought it was a great show. Thought you did great.
That's how I'm exercising my NDA. No,
Well,
yeah,
but
it was a great time. I
I'm
said,
not. I'm
we've
not
got an
going to ask you
NDA,
any
but
specific.
we did
I'm not going to ask
public
you specific.
we did public broadcasts.
Yeah. I'm not
During-
going to ask you anything that's specific. And if it is, and just say I can't talk about that, and that's cool.
what I'll say.
So,
Yeah,
so
it was a
you had
good time last weekend.
It was a cool location.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little confused by the range of spirits that you were connecting with because what I didn't catch, and I'm sure you probably did this at the beginning of the broadcast, is kind of give a rundown of the history of the property.
Mm-hmm.
But I asked several times on the chat what the history was. I knew it was a YMCA, and that's pretty much all I knew. But I caught someplace in there it had been a speakeasy in the 20s.
Sure. All kinds of
the-
stuff. It's just an old building.
Over
so
100
it's
been
years
around
old.
town for a long time. But so you had child spirits in there. You had, and that was clearly when you guys were down in the one basement, and they were talking about their legs getting attacked in essence, or not attacked, but that they were being touched on the legs. Like,
right. That was all part of the public broadcast. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, well, that's clearly a child spirit. And it wasn't until sometime later when you were upstairs that they started talking about there's supposed to be a child spirit up here. And I'm like, well, clearly it's down in the basement. That's where he's touching.
What is it with ghosts and basements?
I don't know.
Sarah,
I don't
what do you
understand
think
that.
about that?
But go ahead.
No, you finish.
I was just going to say, but my experience with child spirits is they tend to grab you around the knee or somewhere around there. And so that's how, when I saw that, I knew right away. I'm like, well, that's a child. That's
sure.
Clearly.
So,
go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah. So basements and attics, they're locations to tie back, on our earlier conversations when we used to talk about gin, is, they're dark, they're dirty, they're not frequented by people. So
that last one is the big one.
Yep.
Yeah.
They can hang out up there and most of the time won't be bothered.
Energetically,
Now, somebody asked this question earlier. I'm not sure who brought it up in the chat room. And it's something that we asked this question this last weekend. I'll say that much. And Rocky and I have run into this at investigations. It's the idea of alcohol or cigarettes or cigars, things like that, of that nature.
Yeah. Perfumes.
I remember Rocky and I were at the Walcott Farms out in the woods with John Ward 6 years ago now. And we're looking at the foundations of this old boys' home, places like that. and we're out in the woods, and we're on this piece of slab of concrete. And we got somebody on the spirit box. It's broad daylight. It's afternoon. It's outside in the woods.
Which is when I think we should be doing our investigation. But
yeah. And through the words that were coming through, Rocky said something like, it was something to the effect of, "Are you okay with if I smoke?" "Oh, yeah." The voice comes back. "Smoker." Comes the word, or something like that. And Rocky says, "Do you smoke?" "Yes." And Rocky said, "Would you like a smoke?" And the voice comes back and says, "Would I?" And so Rocky, he lit it and he set one down and he says, "There you go. If you can access that, there it is. Thank you." And that quick clip, "Thank you." And so who are we talking with there? And the big question that somebody asked, do they experience that on the other side? I happened to ask the question this last weekend. I said, do you think if we offer things like alcohol to a spirit, somebody that's known to be a scotch drinker, you put out a scotch for him,
we do that.
Does he sense the scotch? Is that it on that side, that dimension? Or in that dimension, does he have the ability to pick that up and drink it? It just doesn't.
How many times, Scotty, how many times have we hosted or been at events where we've put shots out for Sean and for people like that?
Well, we do that anyway. We could have a gathering and we put a shot out for someone.
So
I think there's go ahead.
I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think making those kind of offerings, especially to your loved ones, that's the same as the Japanese tradition of laying food out at the shrine for your ancestors and stuff like that.
Okay.
I think that's
you wonder if they get a sense of it. So
I think they probably get again, it's all about that energetic intention, the action and that energy to go into the action. That
like, can a ghost get drunk?
Yeah. I don't know if they get drunk, but I think that they appreciate the gesture.
I mean, or an alcoholic will be predisposed to be attracted to a person who has a predisposition to alcohol, or PTSD, or
and maybe they step in. Maybe that like I could see somebody who's an alcoholic. I could see somebody who's an alcoholic hanging or attaching themselves to an alcoholic because they're probably much easier to step into when they're in that sort of constant euphoric state where they can then have a drink themselves or whatever.
It's the same with resonance and trigger objects.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you leave a child's toy out, a child will eventually come and play with it. I mean,
there's that.
There is that. At. But
and we know that works because how many times have we been places where there are quote unquote child spirits, and all you have to do is have a ball, and that ball will get so much activity. It's bouncing around, it's rolling across the floor, it's moving with direction. It's not just rolling on a slanted floor or whatever. It's clearly moving.
Interesting. We set up an experiment at the Mounds Theater back in 2008, and we were filming there in St. Paul, and we put up a big ball, like a beach ball size, and a meter next to it that would go off as somebody stood near it. And we conducted an experiment. We did it on film. And then we had an event at the theater a few weeks later where we showed this film that we had put together of the Mound Theater. And so at this event, we showed the film. And we had the ball and the meter sitting live on the stage there. But then we're showing it on film. And as you're watching on the film, we're conducting this experiment on the stage. The meter goes off when we ask, and the ball starts to roll on the film. But then what happens while we're watching this on the screen? People in the front rows are starting to gasp. Oh, look. And you look up on the stage, and as soon as the ball started rolling and the meter went off on the film, the ball started rolling and the meter went off on the stage at the same moment that we were asking on the film. And I thought that was interesting. That happened. It's a different thing than experiencing the sensory stuff. It made me think of that when we're talking about kids playing with toys.
Right.
So very interesting.
Well, it also shows you that it's intelligent haunting. It's not just some sort of residual thing.
Right. Chuck Thurston says we used a stuffed child's toy to be a trigger object. Got some nice video of it being moved. There you go. That'll freak you out too.
Yeah.
By the way.
But
Child spirits are the ones that freak me out the most.
Yeah. Well, you don't always know if you're actually communicating with a child either. That's the problem.
Right.
There's no way to gauge it.
I think that also, speaks to how the cultural relationship to the paranormal has kind of evolved, because it's more like whatever rules that have been set, it's like I was saying, it was like one bad apple kind of ruins the bunch, because when you're doing paranormal work, you have to have, use your intelligence, be mindful. There's a lot of stuff that has to go along with it. You can't have every, Tom, Dick, and Harry said, "Oh, I'm going to summon a demon," and have that coming up all over the place. I mean, it would practically wreck the balance of the earth.
Right.
We're meant to be.
The earth is out of balance. Anita Palmer asked, was the program taped from last weekend, Scotty? Could you actually hear all the things we saw and heard during the live show? And I'm going to answer that by saying,
I can answer that.
No,
I'm not under an NDA.
I have no recollection.
But the tapes were not it was broadcast live, but it was not saved.
Oh, the broadcast itself that we did?
Yeah.
No, that we broadcast it and we set it up to disappear as soon as the broadcast was over. It's gone.
It's like a ghost in the ether. So
that part is gone. So, but it's interesting. We had like 600 people watching the first night.
There were some things that clearly you guys were hearing that the mics weren't picking up, and there were things that mics were picking. I know there were things that mics picked up that you guys didn't hear, as it always does.
It goes back to that unidirectional thing, like when we were talking with the ghost box guy. It's that carrier wave, and what they're able to.
Well, I am a firm believer that they make cameras now so it looks like you're wearing a pair of glasses, and the cameras are fixed in the bow of the glass. Okay, the eyeglasses, and they're just clear glass lenses, so they don't affect your vision. We're doing an experimental film that I'm directing, and we're shooting some of the scenes with those so that you are in the action when you're in the action. One of the actors is wearing the glasses, so you're seeing what the actor sees and such, and it's kind of cool. I would like to see ghost hunting done if we're going to film it, where all the participants are wearing these glasses.
I think that'd be very cool.
Because I can't tell you how many times I've been frustrated with 3 or 4 people standing in a circle talking, and one of them goes, "Oh my God," and points off camera, and everybody turns around and whatever they saw is gone. Okay?
That's
everybody had those glasses on, then whatever they saw, they'd be facing with a camera, and there'd be a better chance of catching that evidence if it's real. A lot of times I think that's done as a way of being dramatic.
Yes.
For the television. Which is the part that I find extremely frustrating. as a someone who's directed shows like this, I don't like that in anything I run. I'm like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. That's BS. I would much rather go, well, this house was supposed to be extremely haunted and all this stuff, but we found nothing.
Yeah.
Than to manufacture something and have even one thing in there that's fake.
Yeah. I would
'Cause
never
that
fake
that
anything.
affects your credibility.
Yeah.
About the only thing I've done when I filmed and it's reality and it's live and you missed somebody setting the stage of saying why this room is supposed to be haunted. And then you catch something where I go, hey, let's go back and revisit that and redo the talking about the room itself or why, who died here or whatever.
Yeah, I'm fine with
we've
that.
done stuff like that, but never creating evidence.
But and I would much rather have it be anecdotal and say, okay, so I'm standing here and something just grabbed my jacket. The camera didn't catch it, but something grabbed my jacket. I'm thinking back to the Ghost Hunters episode with
Grant. The tugging on the back of his collar. Yeah.
Yeah. And the producer wanted to fake it to recreate it so they could catch it on camera. It wasn't caught on camera. Too bad. Just explain what happened and keep going.
Yep. Now, remember, I was pretty tight with Grant back then.
Yep.
And
I like Grant and those guys. I'm not saying
we
that they
become pretty
were
good friends. And I asked him specifically about that event. He says, Scotty, he says, all I'm going to tell you, I would never, ever fake evidence. I would never fake an event. He says, everybody wants to call this something that I faked. He says, I did not fake anything. And he says, I did not fake anything on camera. He says, there was no wire pulling on me. He said, this was not faked. And he says, I'm going to tell you from the bottom of my heart. Now, one thing I trusted about Grant, I would say to people that didn't know any of these people, they would criticize, oh, it's all fake. And I'd say, the first thing you've got to do, is look to the credibility of the individual. When you can't gauge the event, you got to look to the credibility of the individual. And I knew him only to be a very credible person, a very honest person, probably honest to a fault. That particular thing with the jacket pull was not faked. You know why I know that? Because Grant told me it wasn't so. And I put a lot of credibility and weight in his word to me in person. And,
but my problem with stuff like that, the producers out there, I get
there's
that
unscrupulous producers, you know that.
Yeah, there are producers out there that they want something because they have to show something to the network that's got sizzle, as to use their vernacular.
Well,
and if it doesn't
their
have
purpose
sizzle,
is to entertain, not educate.
Right. Their purpose is ratings and dollars.
Exactly. And so that's where I always I'm like, I trust you, but I don't trust her or him, the producer, who's just trying to make content. That's why I don't like the point off screen and go, oh my God, look there. And there's always a quick rush to try and look. And then it's, we missed it.
Hey, Faceless Mouse.
Screw that.
By the way, Mouse, M-A-U-S with a 5. Is that any by hello, I speak English. I speak English. It is good for me.
Mouse?
Mouse. Is that a takeoff on the graphic novel that was put out, 20 years ago now or more? Underground,
really well
black
done.
and white comic. Mouse. It was all about the Holocaust.
Yeah, really well done.
Amazing graphic novel. Is that what that's from? When I see M-A-U-S, now it's a 5 you got there. Maybe it has nothing to do with it. But that's what it made me think of. Except the pre-recorded EVP is on a voice recorder, says Chuck Thurston. I don't know. Yeah, all depends on who's doing that. Somebody's doing that. They're not presenting. Oh, it's a take on the DJ Deadmau5. Gotcha. Totally different thing than the Holocaust.
Okay.
Let me ask you guys, by the way, something about the Holocaust. I've told you my daughter Rowan is pretty sensitive about things. And she hears things, and I'm not talking in a mediumship way. I'm talking about maybe empathic, maybe. I'm not even going there with that. But she gets
I'll tell you, she's very
really
deep.
riled up about news events, the wars. Are we going to have a war? She came home from crying from school one day because somebody was telling her we're going to war. This was just in the last year. And there was something else where, nuclear war, and worried about that. And then we were all sitting at dinner around the dinner table a couple of weeks ago. And Flynn said to Rowan, "Oh, you're so dumb. You don't know anything about the Holocaust yet." And I'm like, Flynn, they haven't learned that in 5th grade yet. And I said, don't worry about it. And so she's like, well, no, what's the Holocaust? So I gave her a quick brief. We're just sitting eating dinner, and light in brief. And she said,
Holocaust. Brief dinner conversations at the Roberts
conversation at the Roberts house. And well, who started that? And how did that happen? And brief about Hitler rise to power. All in, mind you, in 4.5 minutes, probably. And so she said, could something like that happen today? I said, frankly, when it happened already is almost like today. I said, my grandfather fought in that war. There's people still alive today that are very old that lived through that. They've got tattoos on their arm, I told her. Old people who were 6, 7 years old at the time. And she got really upset by that. I mean, very upset emotionally that could happen, and I said, why are you so upset? And she said, you said it could happen again. I said, it could happen again if we don't make sure it doesn't happen again. And I said, and that's why your mom and I voted for Trump. No, I had to throw that in there because Chuck Thurston's not a Trump guy. No, I said, that's why we safeguard and we watch guard. That's why we're involved in politics. That's why we do what we do. And so, speaking of the Holocaust, that's all. That just came up as an aside because I want my kids to understand that stuff.
Well, my experience with Rowan in conversation, she's a very deep thinker. It's not her first trip around.
Yep.
She's a soul that's returned many times. And so I think it wouldn't be unlikely for her to be someone who went through the Holocaust. And that strikes a chord. Yep.
And there was something else too that I wanted to mention and it just went away. There was something else about that seemed like something I wanted to mention that tied into the Holocaust.
But we look at Hitler always and hold up the Holocaust and yet Mao and Stalin and
millions more.
There's millions and millions more. And it's crazy how we say never again, but we've allowed it to happen several times over. Mm-hmm. Look at the killing fields in Nam afterwards, and just with the Khmer Rouge and all that. It's unthinkable how we as human beings allow other humans to suffer on this planet.
And this is something I tell them even about the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. I said, you know what? We have a lot of problems with China right now that we're working through. And this is how how do you describe that to an 11-year-old who doesn't know much more than Ariana Grande and other things? But I said, we're working through a lot of political problems with China. I said, I guarantee you something. It's not the Chinese people. It's the party.
Yes,
it's the government that's in control. It's
not the Russian people either.
No, it's not. And so there you go.
And herein lies the problem. And when I say problem, the government's problem with social media is that it allows you and I to have conversations with people all around the world and understand that, okay, the politicians are telling me this about these people. I talk to these people all the time online. It's not the people, it's the governments that we allow to be in power.
Mm-hmm.
And our government as well right now. It's not good.
I just want to say, Kat brought up this book. I've been here before. It's about the Holocaust and reincarnation. Kat and others, I've mentioned this book before. You might be interested in, if you haven't read it already, Whitley Strieber wrote a book called The Key. Sarah, do you know anything about that book?
Whitley Strieber. That sounds familiar, but he's a
Strieber
guy, right?
Strieber was a writer.
Yeah.
White writer and producer.
He wrote the book, which became the movie Communion.
Okay.
With the big alien face on the cover,
The
about
alien,
his
there's some
abduction experiences in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
He was an abductee several times.
And he's written a series of books, and that changed his whole life after he wrote that book. That's where he is now. But he wrote books like The Wolfen, which became a movie in the 80s, stuff like that. He was a horror suspense writer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and worked a lot in Hollywood.
He wrote a book called The Key. I read the entire book on a plane between Philadelphia and Minneapolis. Just a little book, about a 1/4 inch thick. And it was about his experience at an event where he was speaking, and somebody came and knocked on his door after hours. And he's like, God damn it. He doesn't like people coming up to his room, finding out what room he's in and coming up. And he thought, he's kind of pissed about this. But there's a guy there, and he invites him in because the guy insisted, I've got to talk to you about this thing. And he said he looked, he didn't look like a weirdo or anything, but
looked harmless.
Said his name was Mike. And so he invites Mike in. And they end up talking.
Was Mike wearing a black suit and a black tie?
No. He described in the picture I have in my head. I don't remember how he described him, but
nondescript,
like a light-colored suit.
Yeah,
and,
I think he referred to him as nondescript.
Yeah, and so he's talking to him, but he's bringing out all kinds of weird, wild, very esoteric, spiritual things. And Strieber at first is kind of like, "Why is this guy? What do I have this guy in my room for?" And he said at the beginning of the book, I think it was the beginning, he said, I called my wife immediately after this encounter I'm going to tell you about in this book to tell her, if I talk to you about this book later, I want you to verify that I called you that this actually happened. Because the guy started getting into into things where, like, if you were watching a Twilight Zone episode of the way this conversation unfolded in the book, you get the feeling like this guy's God. God's come down to talk to this author. Why? Why did he choose him? That would be the feeling you'd get in a Twilight Zone type of a story. And he talked about the Holocaust. And in this book, and it was part of a greater point that he was making. But he mentioned in the Holocaust that the Holocaust was something that wasn't supposed to happen. And because it did, there are several people who were supposed to have been born, to many of those people who died in the Holocaust. There were supposed to have been children born to them that were going to go on to do greater things that benefited our planet. And it was an interesting story, the way he's telling this to Strieber. And Strieber, he said at one point, he said, Mike, he said, are you Michael? And he got an obscure answer from the guy about that, kind of laughing it off or brushing it off. But then after this conversation, the guy leaves and he's never heard from or seen him again.
And that's how angel visits happen. That's like my angel encounter. A completely nondescript, very normal looking person that you try and describe them, but you can't really there's no one feature that stands out, like he had a big nose or he was wearing a mustache.
Yep.
Or they're just completely nondescript. He looked like a guy.
I would highly recommend pick up the book The Key. You may only be able to get it maybe in some metaphysical shops, but you can probably get it online.
Twice now while you were talking. So earlier when you were talking about Moses, I've got in the background, I have the TV on, and and Prometheus is doing an Ancient Aliens run, and so you're talking about Moses, you're describing the tabernacle and all that. I look up and they're showing pictures. Temple Mount,
nice.
The Holy of Holies, the
nice.
Ark, all that stuff. As you're describing stuff, they're running pictures of it on TV, and I'm like, okay, well, that's
interesting.
Synchronistic, right? You started talking about Whitley Strieber and the key, and they were putting up all these images of keyhole images on the screen for whatever they were talking about. And I'm like, woo.
Wow. By the way, Anita Palmer asks, why is war and the loss many human lives lost worth any of it? I've never understood any of it. It's not.
It's not. But I also look
from this side of it.
When you go back to pre-ancient times and we come forward, there's the Black Death. There's all these things. There are points in the world's existence where mass death happens. And one can only assume that that's by design to curb population, to meet the needs of food production or whatever. And there's every so many years, there's something that's going to cause a large extinction.
Yes.
A large mass death event. And whether it's war or famine or illness or whatever. And we just came through one with this stupid COVID thing. Look at the millions of people around the planet that died off.
Yeah. By the way, Philip Blair, if you can get it on Audible, you ought to listen to it. It's on Audible, folks.
Oh, yeah. And so is Nephilim.
What's
Nephilim
that, Sarah?
is on audio.
Well, I said it ties into the whole idea of cyclical nature.
Yeah.
It's a theme that's repeated on to the point where even people like, Nostradamus could say, okay, if you vague enough, that something's going to happen, in the future, that there'll be a war or disease or pestilence. Because it's even in the biblical and the holy text, when they talk of end of days scenarios and times of trial and tribulation. We're going through earthquakes and plagues and people going crazy and all this stuff. But I did want to talk about one thing, though. But since, we have such a big cultural shift of, kind of away from the supernatural. And then we were talking about earlier with, Christianity's relationship with the paranormal, where for most, in the Bible itself, it seems like, they're very much integrated, with everyday life, almost to the point where, we talk about the story of Saul and the Witch of Endor,
right?
Or David exercising, the whatever was going on with King Saul, or
stooping the king's wife.
Yeah, well, there's that too. But do you think that where we've kind of become very different sort of mindset from back then, that is what we're missing now? That relationship with the relationship with the supernatural world is, we're kind of like all out of balance between mind, body, and spirit. People are going nuts mentally, without having something to, rebalance everything out, as opposed to, those like going through the cyclical times, like we said.
I definitely think we're not as
overcorrection. Will be due for a course correction or over.
Right.
Because some are claiming, we're going to enter this new age of Aquarius, or whatever new agey stuff that
That's, to me, that's new agey talk.
Yeah. So, but for everything that ends up lacking, it always, the scales tend to overcorrect in the other direction.
Nothing wrong with being new agey. That just says that you're a new enlightenment. That's okay.
There you go. What do you get when you play New Age music backwards? New Age music. New Age music. All right. Well, look at the time. It's 11:09.
Yeah,
and
it is.
I got to tell you something.
And Professor Bauer didn't call in. I'm kind of
No,
surprised.
he didn't call in. Well, now that I've announced that we're done, he'll probably call in. But
Professor Bauer,
just
you
waiting
have
for you to ring.
5 seconds.
You got 5
Dial
seconds.
in now. If you dial in now, you'll win.
Yes.
Remember those old radio shows where they'd pull a name out of a box and say, Professor Bauer, you have 5 minutes to call this number and win $10,000.
Yeah. Win $10,000.
It's like being paged at the hospital.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I was going to say, I haven't done many captain's cabins over the last 10 days.
No, you haven't. Very disappointing.
My brain just shuts off. And I got like tonight, before the show tonight, I was like, I can't even think. I can't think straight.
I slept most of the day. My mom decided so I had lodge yesterday. And so my brother came and did my job here, taking care of the parents while I'm gone. My mom's way of subconsciously dealing with that when I get home. So she goes to bed, and then pretty much every hour, or at least every 2 hours, all night long, wakes up and calls for me. Gets me up to go to the bathroom, get her a drink of water, adjust the oxygen hose under her nose that she could reach up and adjust herself, just because she needs to know I'm there.
Yeah.
Because I was gone for 4 hours in the evening. And and it's a constant Friday thing for me now. So literally Thursday night to Friday morning, I got no sleep because I just would doze off when she would ring the bell again. It's like, oh my God. So yeah, I know how you are when your brain is gone. That's me every day on Friday.
I've just got nothing left.
Yeah,
that's the way my days have been lately. I think it's probably because I've been sick. Not really, I'm not sick. I'm not like Sarah. I think it was you that said maybe I should go get tested for tuberculosis.
No, that wasn't me.
Not tuberculosis. The other one, pneumonia. Syphilis, gonorrhea.
Oh, what other great pirate things could he have? Oh.
So tell me, Maury, what did the doctor have to say today? Rivka, it was an appointment that I'm glad I had. My doctor said, Maury, you've got a thing what's called gonorrhea. And she goes, oh, what's that? She says, is that bad? And he says, well, I asked the doctor, is that a bad thing to have? And Rivka, I want to set your mind all right at ease, because the doctor said there's nothing to worry about. It's a disease, but only affects the Gentiles. Bada boom. So Sarah's now laughing. She was like, she either didn't get it or she's like,
yeah.
No, my favorite, and I laugh because so many of our great comics are Jewish. And then Robin Williams is getting interviewed over in Germany, and she says, so why do you think that Germany doesn't have very many funny people? And why do you think Germany doesn't have very many comics? And he looks at her and goes, did you ever think you killed all the funny people?
Yeah, there you go. Oof.
Bold and direct.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting that Holocaust thing. I encourage you all to, Kat, because you brought up your book, pick up the book by Whitley Strieber, The Key. I'm going to reread that because now I'm interested in remembering all the things I read that he had said.
Was it huge? How big was it?
It was only about 1/4 of an inch thick.
Oh.
Like I say, I read it on the plane from Philadelphia to Minneapolis.
And it's available on audio.
It is available on audio, so you could listen to it if you want to listen to it.
I like holding it, and I usually tend to read faster than the audio goes.
You can hold your tablet.
It doesn't come in hardcover, so far as I know.
I could probably find it on Amazon or something.
As a matter of fact, I'm just curious since we're talking about it. I wanna
While he's
see,
doing that, I'd just like to point out The Rise of the Nephilim by Scott Allen Roberts is
Why, thank
also
you.
available on audio, and it's an excellent listen.
Why, thank you, Dave.
I wish you'd have read it yourself, though.
Some people thought the guy reading it was me. Is
Well,
that
here's the deal.
interesting?
There's huge money being made on people creating audio content for audiobooks. You should contact them, and you have a whole bunch of books that you could read yourself and make that money yourself instead of letting somebody else read it for you.
I could.
I'm just saying.
So it all
'Cause you have
depends
so
if
much
my
free time
publisher,
on your
wants to. My publisher wanted to put out the money to do it, so I think that's it. The only other special book here, I'm going to post a really long link in the chat room. That's the link to Whitley Strieber's The Key over on Amazon, or just look it up. Go to Amazon and look up The Key, Whitley Strieber. I had one book. Which one was it?
Camel hair?
No, it was Exodus Reality.
Oh yeah.
Translated into Chinese. I don't know what.
Can you read Chinese?
No,
you know Mandarin, do you?
Yeah, there's these little orange slices. I'm looking over here because I thought I was sitting over here.
Those oranges have their own language? What the hell is that all about? The cherries don't have a language.
Reminds me of Sausage Party. Sausage Party. The animated movie. My kids wanted to watch it, and we couldn't let them watch it. Like the potato, all the vegetables. It's an animated movie, like a Pixar type of movie, and all the vegetables that come home from the grocery store and join the vegetables in the fridge, and it's their lives. And the potato gets scooped up. I just remember that from the trailer. The potato gets picked up. She's taking me. She's taking me. And then she starts peeling him with a knife. He's going, bloody Christ! She's peeling off me skin. She's peeling off me. So, I don't know. Sausage Party. That's where my mind is now. I was saying that at some point. My mind's just tired. I'm done. I'm done for the day. I could goof around and be stupid, but that's about it.
It is entertaining, ladies and gentlemen, to watch him be stupid, but
to decline so quickly right before your eyes. So anyway, Sarah, thank you so much for being here.
Sure.
We didn't get you in a lot, but that's normal. You come in and just hang out and you speak up when you got something.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, whenever I can.
Yes. And so
it's always just a pleasure to hear your voice.
It is. We are so lulled by your voice.
Yeah, now
it's
that's
like a sweet siren. So
I don't mean it in a creepy way.
But I mean, as far as the topic concerned, which we'll get to eventually, but it just goes to show how much the power of ideas are. Which whether it's the Holocaust or the Bible or whatever we choose and what we choose to accept it into our lives and hearts and whatnot. So it's a type of power. It's a type of, and especially I think with Christianity and their views on the supernatural, which in some ways it's good to be defensive about it, as far as you have to maintain yourself and not get thrown in, because there's also things like paranormal obsession and whatnot. You can be thrown into the other end of the spectrum, develop your own types of addictions. And I mean, everything is all about balance. It's a whole beautiful balanced, universal balance type thing that
you keep talking that way. I'm going to start calling you Professor Sarah. Professor Yusuf. By the way, Kat, is that the movie that had the music? Springtime for Hitler in Germany. What was that one? Was that History of the World, or was that something else? I can't remember.
Well, so there's. I think he used it in there, but I think it was originally written for the producers.
The producers.
Yeah,
right.
It's the producers.
So it was a thought in my mind, but
the History of the World, I think, is where he did the bit. This is Hitler dancing around. All I want is peace. A little piece of Poland and a little piece of France.
Yeah.
Uh,
And on that note, guess what?
All right, guys, I'm out.
It's now 11:19. It's 10 minutes later. Sarah, see you later.
All right,
Good to
thanks,
have you
guys.
here tonight. Bye-bye.
Before you dump me,
Yeah.
and I won't make this long, but for those of you who have heard us many times talk about Scotch, the Captain's Cabin is really an on-air version of what Scotch and Cookies would like. You would walk into the room,
Pretty much.
somebody would be talking about string theory, and somebody over here would be talking about ghost hunting or something, and the conversations would just
Other
blend.
people were talking about sex.
And the conversations would just blend from group to group. Now
Yeah.
these people over here are chiming in on string theory, and these people here are talking about ghost sex, and these people are over here talking about whatever, some movie, and those conversations would just kind of blend, and you never knew where the conversation was going to go. Even if there was a point for the conversation that night, it would always drift off and take a left turn and another left turn, and you wind up in some dark alley someplace, and
or you'd play strip chess at 3 in the morning
you
and end up
just never knew what was
waking
going
up
to happen
next
on
to
a
a
Thursday
naked belly
night.
dancer.
Yeah,
So-
and that's why I love those Thursday nights. And those Thursday nights have turned into my lodge night, and that's what Fellowship at Lodge is for us. You walk in and somebody's talking about Legos, and somebody else is talking about a horror movie, and somebody's talking about the craft, and then suddenly it's all blending together, and you're just it's craziness. But I love that.
It was good times.
Good
Good
minds.
memories.
Yeah. All right.
And
Well,
there
your
it is.
little ones are silent, and you can crawl into
They
bed
have
with
been for
Rainy.
about an hour now, so that's a good thing.
So give them all a kiss in the morning for me,
I
and
shall.
I will see you Sunday morning.
All right.
Got- All right.
We'll see you later. All right, folks. That's it. That's all we got. I got nothing else. I'm done. My brain is empty. I'm going to go crawl into bed quietly, not wake up my wife, and maybe turn on the TV. The TV's on already, so just watch something quietly to lull me to sleep. You know what I like to do when I go to sleep? I put on like Native American flute music, or I don't like dead silence at night. I was one of those fan kids. I grew up with a fan, a box fan, to sleep with from the time I was like 8 on. And I always had it. And then Rainey couldn't sleep with the fan, so the fan went away when I got married after 50 years, 45 years. And so there's other things. We put on soft music or night sounds. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Night Sounds. Oh, I can, Sarah. Can you? Are you asking if it can be done? You in general, can you stream YouTube documentaries to your TV? You can. I do all the time. Or I watch them on YouTube on my TV. We got a Roku TV, so I just watch it on there. History Hit TV, things like that. I love fans. I love the white noise. It lulled me to sleep. So now I turn on this Tibetan monk music, and it's got this tone. It's not a it's a like a instrumental tone, and there's little bits of music rising and falling with them. There's a constant in it, and after a while, you realize I've just played. Well, after you wake up in the morning, it's still going. It's like a 12-hour track. And you go, that same single note has been playing the whole time with other pieces of flute or something very subtle over the top of it. I like that. I used to like listening to rain. You tune in a video when I had this big stereo speakers. Oh, you know, my former wife and I went to Honduras, my grandfather's island, down there, and we were lulled to sleep by the ocean every night. His house was, as I've mentioned before, was right on the beach, literally on the beach, 40 feet, if that, from the edge of the water, which was inside the reef. So all the breakers from the ocean, the Caribbean up there, would crash on the reef, but it was like a swimming pool inside the reef. So we'd hear that ocean breakers out there way in the distance. It's about probably a mile out. That's, you never know on water. Half a mile. You'd hear the breakers breaking all night. And went to sleep by that every night. And the waves going. And so when we got back home, we realized we missed that the first night. It's like, it was deathly quiet after 2 weeks of listening to that. So I went out and bought a CD of ocean breaking on the rocks or on the beach, and put that on our stereo. We had the big stereo system with all the components back then, you know, and turn that on loud. So it sounded like real life, high quality sound. Not like watching TV. If you don't have a sound system hooked up to the TV, you can watch those videos at night and it sounds like it's coming off a TV. Oh, by the way, Kat, did you know that you can go on YouTube and find videos, dozens of them, of box fans playing for 8 hours? So you can turn on YouTube. You hear the box fan going. It plays for 8 hours. So the Fitbit, the phone app, comes with Calm and has a lot of sleep stories and nature sounds. I'd like to tell sleep stories when my voice clears up. I'm coughing for 3 weeks. So, no, thank you. My head would explode. But we turned up the ocean sounds, and that was so calming after coming off of that. And I remember what it was like at night down there, because there was nothing down there. We were on the beach, the big resort where people would sail their yachts in and go scuba diving. Was open air to the jungle and wasn't big and built up. The airplane we landed there landed on the beach out in the Honduras and the Caribbean Ocean. And so there wasn't much there. There wasn't electric street lights strung down the lane. But we would get up in the middle of the night and sit on the veranda of this little, it's about the size of a single bedroom. Well, it had a bedroom on each end, so a trailer. It was like this. It was like a trailer home, only small, built out of 2x4s and sugar cane for walls, a tin roof that was thatched over the top, and a rough veranda. And sit out there. I remember part of the time we were there, we had a full moon. And it was just brilliant. And everything was blue. And the water was turquoise and blue by the moonlight. And you could see way out, a mile out on the reef, you could see the white, in the shining in the moon, the big white breakers. You know, they were about that big, way out there. You could see them. And the moon would glisten off the water and the white sand. Everything was white sand. And so, yeah. So I do that sometimes at night. Put on that kind of stuff. Anyway, it's time for me to go do that. I'm going to get out of here. I've wasted enough of my time and your time in the post show. So I want to thank you all for being here, giving me your time. If you're not a member of the channel, if you have not joined, join up and become a member. If you don't have the money to join, it's cheap. It's $1. I think it's 99 cents, $4.99, $15.99. If you don't have the money to do that, you just can't spare it. I understand that. There's days I don't have an extra $1 to do anything. Don't worry about it. Just be here. Let people know the show is here. Love having you here, and I appreciate your presence here. So, with that, I'm going to send you on your way. Live long and prosper.